technology to make sure that they're with us even when they're not. So let's talk about some technology fails. How many of you have had an incident where you tried using a piece of technology and it just blew up in your face? Okay, I have had that happen. Just as I pan the room real quick. All right, how many of you are in either social and behavioral sciences or liberal arts? How many of you are in like STEM, math, science, technology, that sort of thing? Okay, math, engineering, physics, what do we got, math teachers? Or what do we have? Medical. Health sciences. Engineering. Okay. So, I really became a Luddite when they introduced graphing calculators to high school math. I really did. I mean, I was like, what do you need this machine for? Algebra hasn't changed that much since Al-Khwarizmi wrote the Kitab al-Jabra. And so I became kind of a Luddite. And so how many of you have met someone either in your administration or in your higher up who they're like, use technology, use technology, use technology. They don't care if it actually works. They're like, look, we got this grant for this thing, you're going to use it. And actually, I want to talk about this as two sides of the same coin. The technophile and the Luddite are actually cut from the same cloth. Here's what I mean by that. The person who loves technologies is like, I have this new thing and it's going to be great because it's new. Then you have the Luddite. Oh my God, you're putting a new thing in front of me and I don't like it because it's new. In actuality, does novelty necessarily add value to anything? No. And in K-12 especially, I don't know if you've run into this so much at the community college level, is this idea of if we put it in technology, we can entertain them, or as some of them even say, edutain them into learning this. We're going to trick it into their heads. And for those of us who love our subject, who learned it very deeply and passionately, very often with professors who could have, taught Methuselah back in the day, that's deeply hurting. It devalues how we learned it. And you even see situations where we have changed the curriculum to fit the technology. I can give you a very specific example. If you look at algebra textbooks that were printed before 2000, they would teach how to find or how to graph a line from the intercepts, both the x and the y intercepts. It's called standard form. If you look at math textbooks that have been published since 2002, they all start with how to do it on a calculator using what's called slope-intercept form, which is actually not the easy way to do it. And so you have this idea that how many of you have been pressured to change a lesson or pressured to change something just so it fits the technology? And you recoil because you're like, no, that's not how it goes. A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D. And so I submit to you that we need to look at technology as how we can make the technology fit us. Now, I know that sounds very teacher-centered, but the other thing is, especially with our students, they all came from classrooms, which is a human experience. And so one of the things that we need to do is to make our online classes feel more like face-to-face classes. So first, let's take a trip down memory lane.
It's Elmo.
Elmo and Elmo. On your left, you have an overhead projector. How many of you remember those when you were in school? And weren't they great machines? I mean, how many of you have taught with the one on the left? Okay, I did too. I mean, I remember my first teaching job. I was teaching Algebra 1 in a room with chalk and with an overhead projector. And so you had to make the heroic choice. Do I walk out of the classroom with my hands covered in vis-a-vis marker, or do I walk out of my classroom looking like I just lifted weights for an hour and my hands are chalky, right? What's the thing on the right? It's a document camera, and both of them fundamentally do the same thing. Take imagery that I have on a flat surface, and I project it onto a screen. Remember these?
Yeah.
The one on the left is, of course, slide projector. Carousel. The one on the right, of course, is a media projector. The term slide in PowerPoint is a vestige of old school slide projectors. How many of you maybe even still have some things on slides and you can't find the replacement bulb for your projector? Okay, my dad still has 2 projectors at home, and I kind of want one just for antiquarian value, but anyway. And this old gem, the one on the left, the chalkboard. The one on the right is, of course, the smartboard. We have one right here in this room. And so, fundamentally, if I can quote a French philosopher who was subsequently quoted by Kurt Russell in Escape from LA back in 1997, the more things change, the more they stay the same. All right, so virtues of a face-to-face course. You have an audience. How many of you have ever actually tried lecturing for your online course at your computer? You've busted on the webcam or you've flipped on the microphone and you are talking to nobody. And you're thinking, not only the person in the next office is going to think I'm a schizophrenic because I'm talking to nobody, but I just feel weird talking to this green dot that's looking at me. How many of you are even self-conscious about how y'all look on webcam? Okay, all right. At the risk of either complimenting the audience too much or whatever, you're all very beautiful people. Any one of you could make it in online. You won't break the webcam. All right. Now, but you have an audience. You can gauge their response. Do you gauge whether that joke was funny or not? You gauge whether or not they're interested. You have a sense of ownership. And a classroom setting is familiar. We've been in classrooms since we were small children. Online classes, they're new. They're isolating. And we know what to do in a classroom. We have handouts. We have books that you're supposed to read. We hand it out, and there we go. How do we get materials to the students? Well, sometimes we have to export our own stuff to the client, the LMS platform, whether it's Google Classroom or Canvas. Or, if we're really slothful, we get those professor-proof packets that we got from the publisher, and we drag and drop, right? And aren't those great? But when we do that, are we actually teaching the course, or are we just facilitating? Is it our course, or have we demoted ourselves to being that TA that we used to be back when we were in grad school in the